Welcome back, Kirk.
How are you doing
I
this
see.
morning?
Good. I see your dog is still his coat looks healthy. He doing
Yeah,
okay?
I actually have a screen share if you want it.
You have what?
I actually put together some slides for today if you want me to show them.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Thanks for the effort. You know how to do it, right? Okay,
Yep. They'll
beautiful.
be up there.
Got it.
All right. So this is a presentation I did about a week ago, but I added some stuff at the end for you, and I thought it was relevant to your discussion on the yen just now.
Okay.
So I think we have a lot to talk about. Where do you want to start?
Let's just go with your presentation, buddy.
All right. Well, the big narrative is inflation. So we just had the inflation number and it was sticky, but it did not really go up. So what we are seeing with inflation is that it is a cyclical thing. It is not secular. And I've been on that train for 40 years, since I could read. And it's really demographics based. Most of the inflation issues are fixable, mainly because they're natural. The inflation that we see is the man-made part, right? The printing of money, but also the problems with immigration policy. So when you take a look at what's going on with inflation, you see that more and more components of inflation have a read under 3%. That's what this chart shows. And this is from Fundstrat with Tom Lee. So we don't have a lot of things that are causing inflation. There are three that are really the big drivers that are going to be tough to offset, but they're not insurmountable in the intermediate and long term. They're just a problem in the short term. So you have housing, inventories are tight. That's
Okay.
going to take years to fix.
Yeah.
But lower interest rates would actually really help that. I can say that as a private equity guy who's trying to build buildings, that rates a point or two lower would really help with internal rates of return and get a lot of housing built. The second thing is oil. That's controlled by Saudi Arabia for the most part, and I have some charts that I'll show you on that. And then finally, we have labor. Labor inflation is the one thing that I think probably stays sticky for a long time. And ultimately, that's good in a world where product prices, manufactured goods, the price pressure is down. So we have deflationary demographics. We have technology, which is disinflationary, but we have, policy that is inflationary. So we have inflationary policy and practice, but really the natural forces are deflationary and disinflationary at this point. And you try to balance those things out, and you get governments and central banks that screw up, right? They make mistakes. So, or they have long and variable legs, I guess would be a way to put it.
Kirk, how about things that if you drop them on your foot, they hurt? How much time it takes to develop a new copper mine, uranium, all these materials that it's more of a supply issue uh, with a lot of them. And a lot of them strategically are in unfriendly countries as well. So, things like tin and cocoa, and, it really hasn't happened in the grains yet, but it looks like it's starting to. That we have supply disruptions due to, either uh, regulation or government nationalizations. What about the supply issues that we have contributing to inflation?
So you have a number of small supply issues, but nothing that's major, except in chocolate. I mean, they're really being, you know, tough on the chocolate. I mean, that's a rough one in my life. But you take a look at copper. Let's talk copper. Copper has three gigantic mines that are basically idle right now, or at low capacity. And there's what, 6 more under development. I was just reading up on this. You take a look at Anglo American. The copper problems are not insurmountable, but they are a thing that's going to take several years to fix. So that's one of the pressures that'll be there. The need for more copper doesn't kick in for about 3 or 4 more years, though, because that's really directly tied to the
EV.
electrification of the economy and EVs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm big on EVs. However, since 2020, after the Consumer Electronics Show, and I also got to meet Elon Musk a few years before that. I've never believed that the hype cycle for EVs would be much different than any other hype cycle, right? We got the big spike up, all the excitement, the early adopters, and now we're in that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year period where we just have to go through the adoption. So you have Tesla down 50%. I think it can drop another 50%. You take a look at how long it's going to take for people to get into EVs, and this is just a slower process than what the hype was a few years ago, right? It's very typical Gartner hype cycle stuff. So by 2030, most of the passenger cars, not bigger vehicles, but the passenger cars will in fact be EVs. You're seeing it out of China. You have the factories and the semiconductors coming online here in the next 2 to 3 years. So, you know, the idea that everybody was going to have an EV by this year was always silly. But the idea that we're not going to be getting into EVs in the 2030s is equally silly. So there's not huge supply constraints. We have lithium all over the world that's getting developed right now. One of my favorite investments is Lithium Americas. You just got a chance to buy them on the dip, and that's what I've been doing. They're going to develop the mine right there in Nevada, and
Wow.
you're going
Because
to have,
that's tough. It's tough
yeah,
to get permits for lithium.
it's permitted, it's financed, it's
What's
ready
a
to go.
symbol, bro?
LAC.
Oh, yeah, I think I've seen it before.
Yeah, and there's an interesting history on that company. They also have assets in Central South America, and they split the company in 2 pieces a while back. So I originally learned about this company because I invested in the company they bought. So I invested in Millennium or Millennial Lithium
Okay.
3, 4, 5 years ago. I don't remember exactly. And 6 months later, Lithium Americas bought them. So
Do you
they,
still take lithium?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm one of those guys. So you know, you know,
I'm sorry, man. It flew out of my mouth. I'm sorry.
yeah,
It stabilized me in the past. Anyway.
yeah, no, no, no. I mean, I've got good friends and a cousin. I mean, it's. Hey, look, anybody who has something that needs to be treated, treat it
Yeah.
because it'll make you
All
feel
right.
better.
All right. I shouldn't have made a joke out of it, but
Oh
Forex
no,
gal laughed.
hey, hey,
Anyway.
hey, hey. Tragedy plus time equals comedy, right? So
Oh, I like that equation.
that
All
that
right.
is that's the old Robin Williams equation, or man, I think it goes even further back than that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so you take a look at all the materials, and there's not really anything that's in huge shortage. You have supply chain issues, there's no doubt about it. You have oligopolies, you have small ownership structures, that screw things up or tighten things up on purpose. There's a lot of manipulation in materials because they are hard to produce. So, you're going to see Saudi Arabia, and again, I have the oil chart here. You're going to see Saudi Arabia continue to do exactly what I said on this show a couple years ago, is keep oil range bound. So, you take a look at all these things and you start to wonder, all right, if 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 supply chains can get fixed, there's not really a commodity super cycle. I've never been on board with that, and I'm a Jim Rogers guy. I mean, he
Okay.
was formative in my early years, but I don't think that there's a commodity super cycle developing because technology makes our need for the materials less and less and less over time, because the scientists just keep coming up with ways to use less of the rare earth metals, or less copper, or less this, or less the other thing. And the EVs, you know, you have Elon Musk out there, who I think is a whack job. However, he's a brilliant whack job, right? He's a TV guy,
Yeah.
and he is pushing the envelope, and been pushing the envelope on EVs, and they keep improving assembly lines, construction. You got 3D manufacturing starting to finally come into play, as you can use more inputs for that. So you're not going to have super shortages. Now, that doesn't mean you can't make great trades, because you're going to have spikes. You're going to have years where things go in one direction for a while, right? I mean, cocoa is a great example. There's not an easy fix for cocoa. The price of cocoa is probably in a permanently higher band now, a higher trading range for a very, very long time, and anytime I think it's going to last more than a generation, I say forever, and then people get mad at me because, oh, nothing's forever. But to me, 20, 30 years, that's forever. That's close enough to forever that I don't care, right? Because in the long run, Dale, what are we? We're all dead, right?
Well,
So
you know what? Even though that may happen, I've decided I'm going to wear a bow tie like Jimmy Rogers.
there you go. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Anyway,
I wore a bow tie last year for the Kentucky
your
Derby.
poker tournament.
You're keeping up, eh? Yeah.
Huh?
I have not worn one for a poker tournament, but I did wear
It'll psych
Derby.
people out, man. You gotta try it. It'll psych
Yeah,
them out.
my goal this year is a World Series of Poker final table. I don't know what event, but
Oh,
I've
well,
won some. I've won some tickets in, and I'm playing pretty well right now.
good,
And
man.
for folks who think, oh, this guy's just a gambler, I'll tell you what. If you're a real poker player,
You're not
then
a
you know
gambler.
that it's all about risk management, and
Yeah.
investing is all about risk management, right? Three most important
You're
words.
good poker players are also grinders. They
That's right.
grind it out like good traders do.
That's right. And that's why hedge funds in the interview process look for poker players now. So,
Huh. Okay.
that's true. That there's a special on 60 Minutes or Nightline, or one of those shows. In any case, let's jump to oil, because we always talk
Okay.
oil, and
Yeah,
I
we
have to
do.
get to that. I have to get to that chart. I have all kinds of neat stuff here. If anybody wants this chart book, it's on my website at fundamentaltrends.com. Let's see here.
Okay.
Here you go. So I took a couple things here. These are two of the last couple times I've been on. Has it really been a year since I've been on?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. You didn't get in the rotation.
Yeah.
Should be
Okay.
3 months about.
Okay.
We'll
That's
get you back in the rotation.
probably my fault. I haven't been twittering much. I just got
Oh.
back into twittering, and that gets me engaged.
And you're having a great year in Bitcoin. You thought it might happen last year, but it's happening this year. So so you
yeah,
had to wait another year.
yeah, and I bought under 20 grand. Yeah, I bought a lot of it under 20 grand when we talked about it. So it's been a good run. I will tell you, just as an aside, I'm writing an article. It's going to go on Seeking Alpha. And if you don't follow me at Seeking Alpha, I wish you would. The future of Bitcoin has become more certain. And that is something I couldn't say back in 2016 when I was trading it in 2017. I've made some big profitable trades in Bitcoin, and I always traded it because I wasn't sure if it was forever. I'm pretty sure now. I think that what you're seeing is Bitcoin is becoming a global currency, or a global currency hedge. And really, it's a hedge against the dollar becoming too weak or too strong, which we'll talk about in a second. You have so many countries adopting Bitcoin at this point as a balance sheet item that if it becomes part of the currency basket, and I think it's going to be, you're going to see at least a $10 trillion market cap on it, and it could be as high as 30 trillion. So when you back that out, I mean, it's somewhere between a 10x and a 30x from here. So, I know that people want to say, it's built out of nothing, but it's not. Every currency is supported by the economic productive capacity of who owns that currency, right? It's not the country necessarily. It doesn't have to be defined by country. The euro is defined by a group of countries. So why can't Bitcoin be defined by a group of countries, companies, and sovereign wealth funds and super rich people? It's their productive capacity. They're choosing to make it a store of value, and as a way of getting away from central banks devaluing their very large piles of dragon's gold. So I think that you're going to see Bitcoin continue to go on the balance sheets of El Salvador and Ecuador and Colombia and a lot of African nations, and most of the Middle Eastern nations, and China and Russia. It's the Western mind that fights it a little bit, but I think that we in the West have to realize that most of the rest of the world, aside from aspiring to have our lifestyle, also are a little jealous and a little angry. So if they can have something that offsets the impact of the dollar on them, they're going to buy it and they're going to store some of their wealth in it. And there is definitely a component of Smog the Dragon laying on his pile of gold trying to protect it there. But you have the criminality, there's no doubt, but you have criminality in the dollar. I mean, watch any movie, what do? They throw all the money into a big black briefcase and they run away with it. So, nothing really changes other than what's going to get wiped out isn't the dollar, but I think you're going to see the yen and the euro and all these other currencies get weaker, and you're going to see hundreds, a couple hundred small nation currencies go away as they dollarize and Bitcoinize, and then whoever their major trading partners are, they'll add some of that too. So, Bitcoin 10 to 30x from here over the next generation. And I think that at this point, I'm willing to say that out loud and not just wonder about it.
Okay, thank you. Can we spend the rest of the segment covering your thoughts? I know things have calmed down. We've had the two retaliations. It's been Passover since Monday. It ends the end of the month, kind of like Ramadan. They didn't attack during Ramadan. Do you think that it's over or about to accelerate to a new level? I mean, it
Um,
already did. I think we crossed the Rubicon with firing projectiles from uh, your own soil, Iran.
yeah, I have been following this stuff for 40 years, like you,
Yeah,
and I expected this confrontation years ago. That I thought this was going to happen 5, 6, 7 years ago,
yeah.
and I don't think Iran wants an all-out war. I think Netanyahu wouldn't mind. But I think that from a strategy standpoint, the United States has Netanyahu under its thumb. So he's not going to do anything more than what he did, which is attack the bases where the drones came from. And then, the proxies. He's not going to attack Tehran. He's not going to attack the nuclear facilities. There's a lot of things he's not going to do because if he does, it could be the end of Israel, right? It could be, or it could be World War III. So, in my mind, it settles down because the consequences of not settling down are so horrific. And in a case where things get horrific, I'm not too worried about the price of oil, man, because we're all going to be trying to make sure we have food. So, I always discount the end of the world scenarios, because if it's the end of the world, well, then it's the end of the world. Um, I don't think you're going to see oil get much higher. I think it's going to be in this range bound area. Now, could it spike up, for a hot minute? It absolutely could. It could. You could get
Do
6 months.
I've read from Anas El Haji that Iran does not have the capabilities to block the Strait of Hormuz.
No, I mean, it would take, I believe I read in one of it might have been even Foreign Affairs. I mean, if it's in Foreign Affairs, you should be reading it because it's cheap. But I have some higher end resources for geopolitical analysis too. It would take, I believe, one battle group from the U.S. Navy from a distance to wipe out most of the Iranian Navy and the Yemeni pirates and everything else. I'm not really sure why we haven't done that. I think it's because they haven't, they've come up to the red line, they haven't quite crossed it. So, winning that war from a military standpoint in a conventional sense would be pretty easy and pretty fast.
Well,
The
let me ask you
problem is
this. Well, okay, what's the problem?
the problem is what if they actually have nukes?
Okay, that's a problem because
That's the
they're also
problem.
it's not like their population would not like a regime change. The
No,
women, the people inside of Iran aspire to what you were talking about, to have a
right.
better life.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
Iran's been a thorn in the side, not just to Israel,
to
but
everyone.
to every other Sunni nation there.
Yeah.
So pressure from the inside, pressure from the outside, maybe something could happen. And maybe it doesn't even have to be militarily.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Um, I have long wondered why Muslim, excuse me, Muslim women haven't sent a secret message to each other to slit up the throats of all the guys they don't like. I think it's up to the women of a lot of places to save the world from bad men. And I think
Okay.
it's been happening over a couple of generations. So we'll
Yeah.
see how
Okay.
fast that moves.
Okay. So it really is kind of a non-event. It's just television,
Yeah, I think it's something
just
that's.
ratings.
I think it's, well. I mean, there's definitely spike potential, right? I mean, there's definitely news potential, but I think if you hit a home run trade because you're that kind of a trader, then you have to be very quick to take your profits because the other side is a lot of people, a lot of money, a lot of power that'll try to fix things fast, right? As far,
David Jensen writes, he's an attendee.
yeah.
Nobody uses Bitcoin anymore because no privacy can attach smart contract. John McAfee said is going to zero because of that. John McAfee passed away.
So say, isn't he
Uh,
dead?
yeah, he's passed away, and he also said once, David, that he was going to eat something on his body if Bitcoin didn't go to 100,000.
Right.
So anyway,
So, so, so for,
I interviewed McAfee once.
did you?
So yeah, um, what a
Is
character.
was he really nuts?
At that time, wanted to be the nominee for the Libertarian Party, and he was back in the U.S. Anyway, he's on the island with Jim Morris.
Yeah. I read the comment in chat, and nothing in that is really true.
Yeah,
First
all
of all,
right.
you can attach smart contracts to it. That's what been developing for a couple of years. Um, it's not going to be a development tool like Ethereum, but it will definitely do smart contracts, and that is actually an important component. And as far as the secrecy, if you run it through an exchange or some intermediary, yes, you lose some of the anonymity. However, it still is a major offset. It's a major hedge against the dollar. Either
Okay.
being too high or too small. So, in the last chart I just showed, and this is relevant to oil, is, way back here in 2012, when everybody was predicting the dollar going to collapse and Jim Rickards was still running around. He's still running around. I said the dollar was going to have a long-term bull market and get up into a range that I've been calling the millennial dollar. Well, we're there, right? So, I mean, I don't know, how do you call a 12-year bull market and still have people tell you you're wrong? The dollar is going to be permanently in a range. I mean, and when I say permanently, that doesn't mean it can't trade out for a hot minute. It can. But this is really the range around 100, which I said, I talked about it here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had that. When I said it was going to peak, it was September. I'm pretty good on the dollar.
Are we in your view? Are we near the upper end of the range for another trip down?
Yes.
Or continue? Yes. Okay.
Yes. So
That's where I'm at.
September 2022, I said the dollar was peaking. Here's September 2022.
Yeah.
Okay. And I called the bottom when Biden got elected. Now, had Trump won, the dollar would have come down more. And
so if you think the dollar's in a peaking mode here, we're 6 months from the election, you think Trump's going to win and that'll be behind a weak dollar?
I think the election is a toss-up right now.
Okay.
So
do you think that
I have an opinion.
All right. Who are the courts going to have to decide this? Because no one's going to accept the results.
Or the
loses.
CIA.
The CIA might decide it. Okay, that sounds democratic to me. Anyway, Kirk, it was great to have you back and hear your voice and hear what you're thinking. You still like oil or natural gas shares here?
I was actually getting to this. I think that we saw the inflation number come in warm. When you break out the components, you understand why. When you understand in the face of deflation that it's all policy driven, and then labor, which is going to take a long time to fix. You take a look at the dollar, you take a look at oil supply and demand, and what you come away with is this: demand for oil and gas is going to be strong through the decade, and you're going to have the oligopoly OPEC continue to control international flows. The United States is about done growing. We can replace the shale with the Gulf of Mexico and with Guyana, but there's not going to be any gigantic oil influx. So you have.
How about natural gas trading near historic or 30-year lows?
If you take a look at the numbers and how fast alternative energy is growing, especially solar, you come away with one conclusion. Natural gas is very unlikely to spike as long as we're still using oil and we get all that affiliated natural gas. So, I mean, does natural gas go up from here? Yes. Does it find a new permanently higher range? I don't think so. Not until maybe ever, because by the time we stop using oil, we're going to be moving away from natural gas too. So it's a slow-handed trade, and I don't think that there's the hype in the news to make the movements as sharp. Back 20 years ago when I was trading oil and gas, it was a different market, man. And I've moved on because it's so much harder now. You take a look at these moves and they just drift. And it's because the world is changing. And in the face of this energy transition, I don't know how many of you have subscriptions to Hart Energy. I mean, read the Hart Energy stuff on the energy transition. I mean, they're big time oil and gas bulls, always have been, but they see it too. So does natural gas go up from here? Sure. But I like the oil companies best until you start seeing big EV penetration. And you have to understand that the Inflation Reduction Act, you can call it a clean energy bill, but it's really a decarbonization bill. And they put in some major, major piles of money for the oil and gas companies to help decarbonize through, carbon capture. And
Yeah.
it's not going to be the sucking carbon out of the air type. It's going to be converting industrial processes and fuels to be in, low carbon.
Yeah.
It's, one of my favorite investments is it's my biggest micro cap investment, is a company called Ametis out in California. They're building a sustainable aviation fuel plant, and
Oh,
biodiesel.
that's made out of soybeans.
It's not the way they do it.
Oh,
So
okay. Because I heard they were using soybean oil for jets
no,
now.
this company in California, Metis AMTX, they use agricultural waste from all,
Oh, okay. The
all the
waste.
farms. Yeah, well,
Okay.
and then they also have renewable natural gas from the dairies.
Okay.
They have about $600 million of new financing that they've just announced in the last couple of months, from EB5 tax credits, inflation investment tax credits, production tax credits, LCFS is coming online. They just got all kinds of money getting thrown at them now, and nobody's found this company yet. It's just starting to move the last year, and they have a set of contracts with the major airlines. So they're
Okay.
already contracted for billions of dollars of sustainable aviation fuel. So and they have a deal with Loves. So I mean, that's one of their major partners. Is Trillium is owned by Loves.
Okay.
So you take a look at some of these little companies that are going to make a fortune on the Inflation Reduction Act. If you think like a private equity investor, which is that's my side hustle, that's who I hang out with. That's why I'm getting into real estate development on the private equity side. If you think like a vulture and you think like 5 years out instead of 5 minutes out, there's huge money to be made in your sleep. So, I know how hard it is to trade. That's why I've moved away from it. I'm not telling anybody to move away from it. I'm just saying balance your book.
Yeah, I
Uh,
believe that.
yeah, with some things that make you money in your sleep. And
Yeah.
micro caps and small caps. There's actually, I don't know if anybody uses a chart book. Um, the disparity between large caps and small caps and micro caps is the biggest it's been in
Ever.
25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be ever, but I know
Yeah.
25 years. And the last time this happened, micro caps and small caps outperformed for over a decade. I don't think it's going to be over a decade this time. I think it's going to be several years. But
Mhm.
Tom Lee, me, a bunch of, I mean, I won't put myself in his class, but, a lot of people with money that control money, I influence upwards of $1 billion. He influences way more than that. There's a lot of money moving that space. You're going to want to get in there sooner than later. You can chase Microsoft and Amazon and Google up. And I guess those would be the only three that I would chase. But you take a look at the AI craze, and you better ask the question, who's really going to make the money there? And I would posit it's two groups. It's going to be, I'll finish with this just because it's been on my plate. It's going to be the three big cloud providers, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft for sure. But then it's going to be all the companies that benefit from using AI, because their profit margins are going to go up. And that
Okay.
is
I
the
know
milk.
I purchased some AI
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm using it. It was transplanted into my head, and
Okay.
this whole
I was,
interview has been driven by artificial intelligence, AIP, artificial intelligence
I knew I
peanut.
could count on you for a punchline.
Anyway, so let's not let as much time pass. Follow Kirk in his writings. You could follow him on X at his name, at Kirk Spano,
Yeah.
and say hello to Shooter for me, and go to Alpha Trade, and he's in Bitcoin, so Kirk knows where to find Alpha,
Yeah.
and very good analyst, where he gave you a symbol to pay attention to. So if you like that, um, stay in touch with his thoughts. Keep an open mind. It'll keep your account open. Nice talking to you, my trading warrior brother. Really
Yep.
nice.
I listen in once in a while, and I never chime in. I should probably hit the
Yeah,
ham button.
Yeah, let us know when you're stalking us, okay?
All right, take care.
My buddy Kirk Spano, everyone. Everyone have a great weekend. You could join the team in 7 minutes on the morning edge. Um, Hope we've added value. And remember, don't just count your, AI chips and your shares of agricultural waste to power jets. Count your blessings, and I'll see you Monday. Adios, everyone, and thanks again, Kirk.
Take care.
Hey traders, this is Blake Morrow with Forex Analytics. Thanks for stopping by our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like these videos, share them, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the content that we provide here for free. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next video.